A suspect has been arrested in threats that were made to a synagogue in New Jersey. And all of the details about this individual are, I will say, upsetting at the very least. So this is an 18-year-old teenager who made some incredibly violent threats, including wanting to use a molotov cocktail on a Jewish person, wanting to curb stomp LGBTQ people, all of this written online. Authorities say, though, the teen defended himself by saying that he was just LARPing as a terrorist, that is live action role playing, when he wrote and shared the attack plan. He has been charged with transmitting a threat. It turns out that claims of LARPing is not necessarily the amazing legal defense as you might think it is. FBI Newark's Twitter account put out this statement saying they've received credible information of a broad threat to synagogues in New Jersey. And thankfully, they leaped into action and actually did something about it. So let's give you some more details about the threats that were made. The defendant used social media to send a manifesto containing a threat to attack a synagogue based on his hatred of Jews. The screed was called "When Swords Collide." Talked about wanting to attack and kill Jewish people, as well as lionizing leaders of, for instance, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, including Osama bin Laden. The suspect allegedly told people he planned the attack as revenge for the Christchurch, New Zealand attack, where a neo-Nazi killed 51 Muslims. He allegedly was also a fan of Dylan Roof, the white supremacist, because he killed Christians and said that, quote, the attack would involve bombings, shootings, and maybe beheadings. Of course, Dylan Roof was hoping to start some sort of race war in that attack. This individual seems to want to continue some sort of religious war by targeting Jewish people in a synagogue. Anyway, he told officers he wasn't definitely gonna carry out the plan. In October, he told someone online he was 50-50. And then told officers that he was just LARPing, but keeps going back and forth, telling people literally while being hauled into a hospital for a mental health check that he was going to do the attack, but then he claims that he wasn't. The issue is that when you go back and forth like that, that's not a wash. It's not, well, who's to say? We kind of have to lean towards this is a person who's regularly making threats against synagogues. We should probably take it seriously. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, this is when LARPing goes wrong. I mean, hopefully people, even kids, should understand, even regardless of the state of America's educational system, that Nazis are bad and targets of anti-Semitism like this shouldn't be acceptable. Like, kids love to play around and be edgy when they're in middle school and high school, and like I completely understand and remember that, but it should never get to the point where you're like making credible threats and joking or not joking or anything like that, an actual synagogue. And it just goes to show at any time or situation or place where you have these things that are okay in a country and in a society where these things have happened in recent history, where anti-Semitism is something that is very often in the public discourse for ridiculous reasons. It has to do with a lot with celebrity culture. It's a shame that we continue to kind of let these things fester even among youth sometimes, because this is often where it begins. Then you see people who then make excuses like, oh, I didn't even know that stuff was Nazi, or I didn't even know that stuff was anti-Semitic, or I didn't even know that stuff, because they're caught at such a young age, and people, parents, teachers, communities don't catch that and go, hey, let's calm that down a little bit. Let's talk about the context of why this is a bad thing. It's kind of a shame.
Yeah, and look at again, I'm sure there's a lot to these online screeds that this person has said that we don't know in terms of motivation, but specifically citing wanting revenge for Muslims being killed by a neo-Nazi in New Zealand. That like, first of all, if it had been a Jewish person that did it, that wouldn't make it okay. But can we also point out that it wasn't a Jewish person that did it? So like a hate-filled right-winger kills Muslims. So you, being filled with hate, decide you need to kill Jewish people? Why don't you guys just fight? How about that? Why doesn't the right go gather somewhere in the mountains and you can wipe each other out? If all you want to do is play with guns and LARP or whatever, maybe you could work it out between yourselves, because a lot of people are just trying to live. Jewish people just trying to worship in synagogues, Muslims trying to worship in their mosques in New Zealand. None of them want to be involved in your BS. Anyway, look, I don't know what to make of this person. By the way, the suspect has been identified as Omar Alkattoul. like he was telling them he wanted to do it, but he didn't have the balls to do it. He didn't want to get shot or die. Again, that's not reassuring. That just implies that maybe you're gonna look for some way to kill people where you won't be caught or killed. But again, it's just this endless loop of extremism, radicalization online, and violence against people that have literally nothing to do with targeting innocent, in many cases, religious people. Again, like this is why we talk a lot about anti-Semitism on the show, because these sorts of things happen constantly. There's a lot of types of mass violence in America, a lot of types of political violence in America. But we also, like very specifically, cannot go very long between attacks and threats against synagogues. Can we be clear about that? Anyway, any other thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, it just shows the need for actual conversations in schools and on shows like this about history and class and politics, because all of those, and race and religion, because all of those really play importantly together.
Yeah, 100%. Thankfully, they caught this person. I don't know what the consequences are going to be, but as much as, look, we're very critical of cops, I think rightly so, a lot, but thankfully, in a lot of cases, the FBI does do good job of tracking these people down before they're able to commit these horrendous attacks. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.